It's common knowledge that video games don't always come out the way they were first imagined. Whether it's minor storyline tweaks to suit a broader audience or a graphical overhaul with the latest technology, sometimes the worlds we're meant to see just aren't what we get. However, there are some games out there that are so downright dangerous, the industry had to pull rank and call when developers have gone too far. They decide for our own good that no one wants the experience on offer, no matter how enticing the gameplay might sound or how beautiful visuals might be, avoiding controversy and burying the evidence deep underneath releases with far tamer subject matters. This can totally work out, or it can be a severe overreach on what's upsetting to the mass populace. Won't somebody think of the children? Either way, who are we to be told what to do? Whilst these titles may never see the light of day how they were intended, if they even made it out at all, we can still take a look at what might have been. I'm Ash from WhatCulture Gaming, and these are 8 controversial video games the industry was forced to change. 8. Weird Dreams. Often forgotten as a relic of the Commodore 64 age, Weird Dreams is a title that never really made a lasting impression, initially releasing in 1988 to some mixed reviews. The game features a man named Steve who begins to have the titular weird dreams, as unbeknownst to him, the woman he loves is actually a demon called Zalopirus trying to work its way into his mind. Easy enough mistake to make, we've all been there. Since his psychiatrist can't figure out the problem, he's sent to a neurosurgeon, put under anaesthetic and operated on, resulting in one last weird-ass dream that you then play through. Dying in the dream results in dying in real life, as we are in Inception apparently, but the game wasn't always designed that way. Weird Dreams was supposed to punish the player's death by revealing you wake up in your own surgery and have to endure a brain operation whilst fully capable of seeing and feeling everything that's going on. Coming at a time when people were genuinely quite scared of being awake during medical procedures, as well as just being a generally horrifying premise to begin with, the ending was altered to being a simple death instead. It isn't a big change, but we might as well start off light here before the next entries. 7. Thrill Kill. Whilst technically unreleased, leaks of the game have been playable for some time, rendering this one a bizarrely censored title that feels like overkill considering what else is on the market. Thrill Kill was supposed to be the most controversial game of all time, combining BDSM, dismemberment, loads of gosh dang cursing, and all the genre staples of exploitation into one big fighting mashup. But EA decided to pull the project before it could ever hit shelves to avoid bringing out a senselessly violent game. They then released Dead Space 2 off the back of it being the most offensive game ever that your mom definitely hates. Make up your mind, guys. With move types like Bitch Slap and Swallow This, the game gained notoriety quickly, and was eagerly shared around when former employees released it despite EA putting a hold on proceedings. Turns out that Thrill Kill is a prime example of the industry not quite getting it right, since most that played the title complained it really wasn't worth the hype, and they weren't particularly blown away by the Mortal Kombat aping release, despite its infamous status. Oh well, at least you can happily clobber people's heads in with a severed leg knowing EA aren't seeing any profits from it. Or, since this is about changes, you can play the Wu-Tang Clan game, which is just a cheap reskin of this entire engine. 6. 6 Days in Fallujah. Apparently created as an attempt to offer the most realistic military depiction in gaming, 6 Days in Fallujah was originally supposed to replicate the experiences of US Marines as authentically as possible. But whilst various Marines were on hand to help design a game, they were then deployed to the Second Battle of Fallujah during the Iraq War. Atomic Games, seeing a potential opportunity, thought this would be a great idea to capitalise on. It was not a great idea to capitalise on. Whilst many games have portrayed incidents of war throughout history, none have gone so far as to actually release a game based on a war that was still fresh in people's memories. Never mind one that was still unfolding. 6 Days in Fallujah was regarded as heavily controversial, and a major misstep for a studio that could have easily looked at what they were doing and actually took a moment to consider if they really wanted to stir that pot. Despite being ready for release, the media storm surrounding it really wasn't worth battling with, so it was changed by being taken off the release schedule due to the controversy surrounding the whole idea. It was probably for the best. 5. Active Shooter, aka Standoff. It's really not hard to understand why this title was shelved a few days before release. How it even got that far into the system is a mystery in itself, since it's a game that simulates a school shootout in some sort of strange parody. And no, you aren't a SWAT team member honing in to neutralise a threat, or a school attendee running through protocol. Not that either of those would make it any better, but you're the one wielding the actual gun on school premises. Steam got so rightly riled up about the project that they not only banned the game from sales through their platform, but instated a controversial games policy in its wake. In response, the game changed its name to Standoff, relocated itself to a shopfront, and got itself back onto the server, but has managed only a measly amount of sales in the wake of its boneheaded decision to trivialise an actual horrific problem going on in the world today. That this happened in just 2018 is somewhat more shocking than anything else. With everything from the developer's PayPal account suspended to their website hosting revoked, it's at least an example of the consequences of pulling such a stunt in the industry today. 4. Carnival. Another from Midway Games that attempted to cash in on being the most controversial game ever, or at least shocking enough to send audiences into a spin that really didn't deliver that. Carnival was a rail shooter release that sees you attempt to survive a haunted fairground risen from under the earth. It's pretty much all fun and games, and a neat little arcade horror game to work through, all apart from one boss level that got some punters clutching at their pearls. Compared to the rest of this list, it is a surprise. It's really nothing to think of in modern media, but the freak show level revealed a giant baby rising up to attack the player. Considering you've got to shoot it to death to win the level, that upset some people. Please, nobody tell them about Catherine or Who's Your Daddy? The software settings allowed for the monstrosity to be swapped out with a teddy bear affectionately named Deddy, and the blood and gore meters to be toned down for those that got upset at being faced with zombified human offspring. Considering it was 1998, there is something to be given for it being a different time, but still, it was literally a giant deformed monster baby stitched together like Frankenstein. Hardly a cherub. 3. Mother 3's Western release. Considering this one was actually released and has been yearned for by Western audiences for over 15 years now, it's somewhat of a surprise that Nintendo hasn't capitalised on the popularity of Mother 3. Earthbound, technically the second in the Mother series and known as Mother 2 in Japan, is the only game of the trilogy to get an official release on Western shores. But exactly why we haven't received the follow-up is still an issue being debated today. Nintendo believes that the driving force of bereavement in the game would ruffle up the players if it were to be translated and marketed outside of Japan, with a comment from Game Informer's editor revealing it was actually in progress before coming to a stop. Quoted as, "It was full steam ahead for a while, but upon re-evaluation, there were aspects of the game that weren't going to go without controversy. Anything from hallucinogenic drug trips that recount child abuse to getting kicked and shocked as you play as an animal to designs for characters that might not be as #woke in today's climate could be the reason for that. Either way, Nintendo feels like it has to change the game for it to come to Western audiences and still won't release it over here. Even with them, since they already started doing it. 2. Postal II. Now, this one ties in more specifically to New Zealand's game industry than anywhere else, since Postal II has been outright banned since its release in 2003. This isn't particularly special since it's been banned in Australia and Malaysia too, but neither of those countries went quite so far as New Zealand did in ensuring it didn't get into the hands of the public. Postal II posits you as a man out to complete mundane tasks, the catch being you can do so as explicitly and violently as you like. The game features plenty of controversial content, namely a lot of violence and urination, and combines about every offensive feature you can imagine into one neat little disc. It isn't a nice game, and considering New Zealand is a nice country, there was only one course of action they felt was appropriate to take. To counteract anyone interested in its gameplay, cited as gross, abhorrent content featuring high-impact violence, animal cruelty, homophobia, racism, and ethnic stereotypes, they implemented a fine of $50,000 and up to 10 years in prison. Instead of changing the game outright, they just changed the parameters of being able to play it to such a degree that it is not even worth trying. Don't f**k with the Kiwis. 1. Grand Theft Auto 3. Coming only mere weeks after the events of 9/11, Rockstar decided it would be best to make some changes to their game set to take place in the same city, purely to avoid any coincidental references to the attack that left New York City reeling. Delaying the game by 3 weeks, the GTA we got was reportedly only about 1% different to the game that was originally created, with changes to the cop cars, flight paths of planes, and one mission with reference to terrorists. Whilst Rockstar were open with what had to be altered in the light of the attack, people still speculate on potential theories as to other coding changes happening behind the scenes. Whether it's lost tunnels or multiplayer modes, there's plenty that fans get stuck into, but nothing more than the awkward dodo plane that flies with clipped wings. It's incredibly difficult to handle and can only be flown for short periods, predominantly as Rockstar argued they were making a driving and shooting game. But the tragedy of 9/11 is still pointed at for the reasoning for pushing the dodo out of gameplay, or at least heavily dissuading players from engaging with it. Either way, the developers had their hands pushed to create a game that wouldn't touch upon the weeks prior and made nuanced changes, managing to get out an excellent, adapted version that remains one of the best of its kind. And that's our list. What other industry interference made waves? Share your thoughts in the comment section below. I've been Ash and this has been WhatCulture Gaming. Make sure to subscribe to the WhatCulture YouTube channel for more lists like this. And don't forget to visit whatculture.com for daily news and articles. Thanks for watching.